Imagine you wake up in the morning and something feels very strange. You try to get out of bed, but instead of standing up, your body begins to float upward. First you think you are dreaming, but then you notice your pillow drifting away, your blanket spinning like a ghost, and even your phone floating right above your head. Suddenly it hits you: gravity is gone. Gravity is the invisible force that has kept us safe for billions of years. It holds your feet on the ground, keeps the oceans in place, and makes the earth circle around the sun. Without gravity, nothing would stay where it belongs. But now, in this thought experiment, we imagine the unthinkable. What if gravity stopped working everywhere, all at once? In the first few seconds, the world would look like a strange science fiction movie. People would rise slowly into the air. Children might laugh at first, thinking it is fun, but adults would panic. Birds would flap their wings in confusion because they no longer need to fight gravity to fly. Rivers, lakes, and oceans would rise up, forming giant floating blobs of water. Fish would swim inside these water bubbles, drifting into the sky. The situation would grow worse every second. Airplanes would lose control, no longer able to fly properly. Cars and buses would lift off roads and highways, tumbling into the air. Skyscrapers, bridges, and houses would begin to break apart. Because gravity is the force that keeps heavy structures steady. Without it, cities would start crumbling like sandcastles. In a matter of minutes, people, animals, and entire buildings would drift higher into the sky. The air itself would escape, because gravity is what keeps our atmosphere wrapped around the planet. Without air, humans would not be able to breathe for long. The blue sky would turn dark as the atmosphere leaked. Into space as hours passed, the destruction would grow beyond imagination. Oceans would leave Earth completely, rising into space as giant water clouds. Imagine looking up and seeing a huge whale drifting above your head, slowly floating into the endless sky. Sharks, dolphins, and jellyfish would follow, trapped in floating bubbles of water. It would look like a dream, but in truth, it would be a nightmare. But the scariest part is not what happens on Earth. The bigger danger is in space itself. Gravity is not just important for us. It holds the moon in orbit and keeps the Earth circling the sun. Without gravity, Earth would stop orbiting. Our planet would shoot away into space like a lost spaceship. The warmth of the sun would fade. And within weeks, Earth would turn into a frozen rock drifting in darkness. The moon, too, would drift away, no longer tied to us. Without the moon, tides would vanish, and the rhythm of life on Earth would collapse. Without gravity, there is no balance in the universe. Stars, planets, and galaxies all exist because gravity binds them together. If gravity disappeared everywhere, the universe itself would break apart. Galaxies would scatter, stars would explode. Life anywhere in the cosmos would be impossible. This is why gravity is not just a simple force, it is the glue of existence. It holds everything in place, from the tiniest pebble on Earth to the largest galaxy in the universe. Without it, there is no life, no planets, no stars, and no future. This was only the beginning, the first few hours after gravity disappeared. But what if gravity did not vanish suddenly? What if it slowly weakened, day by day? Could humans invent machines to hold themselves down? Could we survive longer if gravity faded instead of disappearing instantly? Or would our world still be doomed? At the beginning, humans would only see small differences. For example, you might jump higher than usual. Children on playgrounds would notice they could leap into the air and stay there a second longer before landing. Basketball players would slam dunk with ease. For a moment, it would feel like a miracle. People would think gravity weakening is a gift, not a curse, but within weeks the truth would become clear. With weaker gravity, objects would feel lighter. Carrying heavy bags, furniture, or even cars would seem easier. Construction workers could lift huge steel beams without cranes. Athletes would break world records every day. The world would celebrate. Social media would be filled with videos of people flying higher, running faster, and lifting impossible weights. It would go viral instantly. Then the problems would begin. As gravity continued to weaken, liquids would start behaving strangely. Water would not stay in glasses. it would float just above the surface. Oceans would form small waves that never fully returned to shore. Rivers would look like they were boiling, with water lifting off into the air. Farmers would panic because crops would no longer receive proper irrigation. Animals would grow confused, trying to drink from water that refused to stay still. Soon, buildings would face serious issues. Skyscrapers are designed with the expectation of strong gravity holding them down. Without it, their foundations would loosen. Bridges would sway dangerously in the wind. Airplanes would lose stability because they depend on gravity to balance. Flight pilots would struggle to control their planes as passengers floated inside like astronauts. Human life would become even more difficult. Without enough gravity, blood circulation inside the body would change. Our heart pumps blood downward against gravity, but in low gravity, blood would flow differently, causing headaches, swelling, and long-term health problems. Our muscles and bones would weaken because they would no longer need to carry weight. Within months, people would grow fragile, like astronauts who spend too long in space. And what about space itself? The moon, which controls Earth's tides, would slowly drift away. With weaker gravity, Earth would not be able to hold on to its natural satellite. The tides would shrink, damaging marine life in coastal ecosystems. Fishermen would lose their livelihoods, and entire communities near the ocean would collapse. Eventually, Earth itself would face its greatest danger, falling out of orbit. Gravity is what keeps us circling the sun at the perfect distance for life. If our gravity weakened too much, Earth would slowly slip away from its orbit. At first, the seasons would grow unstable. Winters colder, summers hotter. Then, as Earth drifted farther, the warmth of the sun would fade and the planet would begin to freeze. Humanity would not give up easily. Scientists would search for solutions. Some would design heavy boots and magnetic suits to keep people on the ground. Others would try to build giant machines that simulate artificial gravity using rotation or magnetism. Cities might be rebuilt inside massive domes where artificial gravity could be controlled, but these efforts would only buy time. As gravity kept fading, nothing could stop the final collapse. In the end, the slow weakening of gravity might even be scarier than its sudden disappearance. Instead of instant destruction, it would be a long, painful countdown to extinction. People would watch every day as their world slipped further away, oceans rising, the sky darkening, the moon vanishing, and finally, Earth itself drifting into the frozen emptiness of space. This raises an even deeper question. What if humanity knew in advance that gravity was fading? Could we prepare for survival? Could we build giant space stations or move to another planet before Earth was lost forever? Or would it already be too late? By now, the world knows the truth. Gravity is weakening, and nothing can stop it. At first, people enjoyed jumping higher, lifting heavy things easily, and watching water float like magic. But now reality has turned dark. Oceans are breaking. Apart into the sky, buildings are crumbling, and the moon is drifting away. Humanity realizes this is not just a strange event, it's the beginning of the end in every country. Scientists and leaders gather in emergency meetings. The first question is simple but terrifying. How can we survive in a world without gravity? Many scientists agree on one thing. If humans want to live, they must create artificial gravity. That means building machines or environments that simulate gravity even when nature cannot. The first attempt is small. Engineers design heavy magnetic boots to keep people attached to the ground. Walking with these boots is slow and difficult, but it stops people from floating away. Factories quickly begin mass production, and soon billions of people around the world are wearing them. But magnetic boots only work on surfaces with metal. What about forests, oceans, or deserts? People quickly realize this is not enough. Next, scientists turn to giant rotating habitats. In space, astronauts use spinning chambers to create artificial gravity. Engineers now plan to build entire rotating cities on Earth. Imagine a massive dome spinning slowly, where the force of rotation pushes people against the walls, creating the feeling of gravity. Some countries begin constructing these megastructures, but they take years to build. By the time the first ones are ready, gravity has weakened even more. Meanwhile, life outside becomes impossible. Rivers no longer flow. Animals float helplessly. Into the sky, farmers cannot grow food because soil and water drift away. Supermarkets are empty. Hunger spreads across the globe. Governments fight over resources and wars begin. Some people believe the end of the world has come and panic fills every city. But not everyone gives up. Space agencies like NASA, ESA, and private companies like SpaceX begin working on a desperate plan: leaving Earth. If gravity keeps weakening, Earth will drift away from the sun and freeze. The only chance is to escape before it's too late. Huge rockets are prepared not just for astronauts, but for thousands of civilians. People hope to build colonies on Mars, the Moon, or even massive space stations orbiting other planets. Richest and most powerful try to buy their way onto these ships. Ordinary people are left behind, praying for a miracle. Protests and riots break out as billions realize they may never escape. Humanity is divided between those who can leave and those who cannot. At the same time, scientists notice another terrifying problem. As gravity fades, Earth's core begins to cool. Normally, gravity keeps extreme pressure on the core, keeping it hot and active. Without gravity, the molten iron inside Earth begins to solidify. This means Earth's magnetic field, our shield against dangerous radiation, starts to collapse. The skies fill with deadly cosmic rays, and without protection, people begin to suffer from radiation sickness. The clock is ticking. Humanity has only a short window before Earth becomes unlivable. In some parts of the world, people cling to hope, building underground shelters with artificial gravity machines. In others, people accept fate and enjoy their last days, floating freely into the sky, watching the stars as if saying goodbye. For the first time in history, every human being faces the same choice: fight to survive or surrender to the end. But here's the big question. What if artificial gravity really worked? Could humans build a new civilization without natural gravity, inside giant domes or space stations? Could we continue as a species even if Earth itself is lost? Humanity was on the edge of extinction. Gravity was fading faster each day. Oceans were drifting away. And Earth itself was preparing to leave its orbit around the sun. Billions of people had already been lost. But in the middle of chaos, one last hope rose from the ground: the creation of artificial gravity cities. These cities were not like anything we had ever seen before. Imagine a giant dome, taller than mountains, spinning slowly in the sky. Inside, the rotation created artificial gravity, pushing people to the ground and allowing them to walk, eat, and live almost normally. These domes became humanity's safe zones, the last islands of stability in a world falling apart. Life inside these domes was strange. On the surface, it looked like a normal city. People walked the streets, children went to school, and shops reopened. Outside the transparent walls of the dome, the world was unrecognizable. Cars floated like balloons, rivers drifted as shining ribbons in the sky.
Ow.
And the ruins of old buildings hovered in midair. Every time people looked outside, they were reminded that the real Earth was gone. Food was one of the biggest challenges. Farms outside could not survive without gravity. Inside the domes, scientists developed vertical farm-stowering greenhouses where plants grew under artificial light. Water was recycled carefully, and nothing was wasted. Even then, food was limited. People learned to eat less, share more, and survive on smaller meals. Luxuries like meat, sweets, and fresh fruit became treasures only seen on special occasions. Another problem was space. Not everyone could live inside the domes. Only a fraction of humanity managed to enter. Families were torn apart, some made it inside, others were left outside to face the chaos. People inside the domes carried a heavy guilt, knowing their survival meant others had to die. The atmosphere inside was a strange mix of hope and sadness. Technology also changed. With no natural gravity, humans had to redesign everything: transportation, housing, and even healthcare. Floating elevators replaced stairs. Hospitals used rotating medical pods to keep patients stable. Children grew up in classrooms where teachers explained that the world outside no longer worked like it used to. A whole new generation was born, who had never felt the real pull of Earth's gravity. For them, life inside artificial domes was normal, but survival came at a cost. The domes needed constant energy to rotate and maintain gravity. Giant nuclear and fusion reactors were built to power them. Engineers worked day and night to keep the systems alive. One small failure could mean disaster. If the rotation stopped, the illusion of gravity would disappear, and everyone inside would begin floating uncontrollably. Despite the danger, people adapted. Artists painted new visions of the future. Poets wrote about the strange beauty of floating seas and drifting. Mountains and musicians created songs of survival and hope. Humanity had lost its planet, but it had not lost its spirit. Still, scientists warned, these domes were only temporary. As Earth drifted farther from the sun, temperatures dropped lower each day. Even with artificial gravity, people needed heat, light, and energy to survive. Without the sun's warmth, could these domes really protect humanity forever? Or were they just delaying the inevitable? The truth was clear. Artificial gravity cities were not a permanent solution. They were humanity's last shelters, but not humanity's future. To truly survive, we would need to leave Earth completely. The stars were calling, and soon our species would have to answer. The artificial gravity cities had saved humanity for a short time, but everyone knew the truth. They were only temporary shelters. Earth was drifting away from the sun, growing colder every day. Outside the domes, oceans were gone, the atmosphere was escaping, and the planet was turning into a frozen rock. Survival on Earth was impossible. Humanity had to make the hardest decision in history: leave our home forever. The plan to escape into space had already begun years earlier. Space agencies and private companies joined forces to build the largest fleet of rockets humanity had ever seen. These were not simple spacecraft. They were giant arcs, designed to carry thousands of people, food, and technology into the stars. Some ships were built to head toward Mars. Others were massive rotating space stations, capable of simulating gravity and supporting entire colonies. The day of launch was unlike any other. Millions gathered inside the domes to watch. Outside, the once beautiful Earth floated in silence, a dead planet slowly falling apart. Families hugged tightly, knowing not everyone would get a place on the ships. The tickets to escape had become the most valuable thing in the world. Only the rich, powerful, scientists, engineers, and a lucky few were chosen. Billions of others were left behind, praying for a miracle. When the rockets ignited, the ground shook. The skies lit up with fire as humanity's last hope rose above the dying Earth. Thousands of ships left in waves, glowing like stars against the dark sky. People inside the rockets looked through the windows and saw their planet for the last time. Some cried. Others whispered prayers, and many felt an emptiness they could not describe. They were leaving not just a world, but the home of their ancestors, their history, their memories. Life on the ships was difficult. Space was limited, food was rationed, and gravity was artificial. People had to adapt to a new way of living, sleeping in small cabins, eating simple meals, and working together to keep the systems running. Engineers checked the engines every day. Doctors monitored health problems from low gravity, and teachers taught children about the lost world of Earth. Humanity had become a species of wanderers, no longer tied to a planet, but hope still burned. For the first time, humans looked at the stars, not just with curiosity, but with a mission. Mars, the Moon, distant exoplanets, any of them could be the new home. Scientists believed that if they worked together, humanity could rebuild somewhere else. The journey would take years, maybe centuries, but the dream of survival kept everyone alive, yet danger followed even into space. Without gravity, Earth's core had cooled, its magnetic field gone, and deadly cosmic radiation now flooded the solar system. The ships had to be shielded with thick layers of metal and energy fields to protect people from radiation storms. Sometimes meteors struck close, reminding everyone that space was not a safe escape. It was a new battlefield for survival. Still, the human spirit refused to die. In the vast darkness, children laughed inside the ships, drawing pictures of new worlds. Parents told stories of Earth so the next generation would remember the blue planet that once existed. Leaders promised that one day they would step onto solid ground again and build cities that would not depend on a dying Earth. For now, humanity had left its cradle. Earth was gone, but the stars were waiting. The question was not whether we could survive in space, but whether we could find a new world before time ran out. The artificial gravity cities had saved humanity for a short time, but everyone knew the truth. They were only temporary shelters. Earth was drifting away from the sun, growing colder every day. Outside the domes, oceans were gone, the atmosphere was escaping, and the planet was turning into a frozen rock. Survival on Earth was impossible. Humanity had to make the hardest decision in history: leave our home forever. The plan to escape into space had already begun years earlier. Space agencies and private companies joined forces to build the largest fleet of rockets humanity had ever seen. These were not simple spacecraft. They were giant arcs, designed to carry thousands of people, food, and technology into the stars. Some ships were built to head toward Mars. Others were massive rotating space stations, capable of simulating gravity and supporting entire colonies. The day of launch was unlike any other. Millions gathered inside the domes to watch. Outside, the once beautiful Earth floated in silence, a dead planet slowly falling apart. Families hugged tightly, knowing not everyone would get a place on the ships. Tickets to escape had become the most valuable thing in the world. Only the rich, powerful scientists, engineers, and a lucky few were chosen. Billions of others were left behind, praying for a miracle. When the rockets ignited, the ground shook. The skies lit up with fire as humanity's last hope rose above the dying Earth. Thousands of ships left in waves, glowing like stars against the dark sky. People inside the rockets looked through the windows and saw their planet for the last time. Some cried, others whispered prayers, and many felt an emptiness they could not describe. They were leaving not just a world, but the home of their ancestors, their history, their memories. Life on the ships was difficult. Space was limited, food was rationed, and gravity was artificial. People had to adapt to a new way of living, sleeping in small cabins, eating simple meals, and working together to keep the systems running. Engineers checked the engines every day. Doctors monitored health problems from low gravity, and teachers taught children about the lost world of Earth. Humanity had become a species of wanderers. It's no longer tied to a planet, but hope still burned. For the first time, humans looked at the stars not just with curiosity, but with a mission. Mars, the moon, distant exoplanets, any of them could be the new home. Scientists believed that if they worked together, humanity could rebuild somewhere else. The journey would take years, maybe centuries, but the dream of survival kept everyone alive, yet danger followed even into space. Without gravity, Earth's core had cooled, its magnetic field gone, and deadly cosmic radiation now flooded the solar system. The ships had to be shielded with thick layers of metal and energy fields to protect people from radiation storms. Sometimes meteors struck close, reminding everyone that space was not a safe escape. It was a new battlefield for survival. Still, the human spirit refused to die. In the vast darkness, children laughed inside the ships, drawing pictures of new worlds. Parents told stories of Earth, so the next generation would remember the blue planet that once existed. Leaders promised that one day they would step onto solid ground again and build cities that would not depend on a dying Earth. For now, humanity had left its cradle. Earth was gone, but the stars were waiting. The question was not whether we could survive in space, but whether we could find a new world before time ran out. After centuries of drifting through space, after countless failures and heartbreaks, the fleet of humanity finally reached the mysterious blue-green planet. From space, it looked almost like Earth. Vast oceans shimmered under the light of its sun. Clouds wrapped around its surface, and great continents stretched across the horizon. For the first time in generations, people saw something that reminded them of home. They called it the New Earth. As the first ships entered orbit, the atmosphere was scanned. Scientists held their breath. The results came back. Oxygen levels were safe, temperatures were stable, and water was abundant. It was almost perfect. Cheers erupted across the ships. People cried with joy. After all the suffering, after losing their original planet, they finally had a second chance. The first landing was emotional. As the ships descended, people pressed against the windows, watching mountains, forests, and rivers come into view. When the doors opened, the first humans stepped out. For the first time in centuries, they felt solid ground beneath their feet, not artificial floors. Not spinning stations, but real soil. Many fell to their knees and kissed the ground. Some scooped up handfuls of dirt, holding it like treasure. Others simply stood, feeling gravity pull them naturally again. It was not as strong as Earth's gravity, but it was real. It felt like a gift. The air was fresh, filled with the scent of plants and rain. Children ran freely, laughing as they felt the wind on their faces. Old men and women who had lived their entire lives inside ships cried as they saw the sky bright, endless, and full of clouds. The new Earth was alive, but not everything was simple. Explorers quickly discovered strange plants and unusual creatures roaming the land. Some were harmless, glowing softly in the night. Others were dangerous, hunting in packs with sharp teeth and claws. Humanity realized that this world was not empty. It had its own ecosystems, its own balance. To survive, humans would have to learn to live with it, not against it. Colonies were quickly built near rivers and forests. Using the technology brought from space, people constructed domes, farms, and energy stations. Crops were planted in the fertile soil, and within months, fresh food was growing again. For the first time since leaving Earth, people tasted fruit that came from the ground, not from hydroponic labs. It was a taste of hope, yet dangers remained. Storms on the new Earth were fierce, more violent than anything on old Earth, the planets. Gravity was slightly weaker, making everything lighter, but it also meant winds were stronger and weather unpredictable. Scientists warned that the planet's ecosystem might resist the arrival of humans. Diseases from alien plants and animals began to spread. Doctors raced to develop cures. Despite the challenges, humanity refused to give up. People worked together, stronger than ever. They had lost one planet, but they would not lose this one. The dream of survival was no longer a dream. It was becoming reality. But deep inside, everyone knew the truth. This was not the end of the story. The universe was still dangerous, and gravity could never be taken for granted again. The question now was, could humanity build a lasting future on this new Earth? Or was this only another chapter in their endless journey? The first years on New Earth were full of excitement, fear, and determination. Humanity had survived the impossible. They had escaped the collapse of gravity, wandered through the emptiness of space, and found a new home. Now came the hardest part, building a new civilization from nothing. At first, life was simple, but difficult. Families lived inside temporary shelters made from ship parts. The air was breathable, but storms often destroyed weak structures. Food was scarce, and survival depended on the crops that scientists had quickly planted in the fertile soil. Every harvest was celebrated as if it were a festival. The taste of fresh fruit or cooked grain felt like a miracle. Slowly, communities formed. Rivers provided water, forests gave wood, and the land offered resources. Engineers began constructing stronger houses, schools, and hospitals. Children who had grown up inside metal ships finally had playgrounds of grass and open skies. Laughter filled the air again, something that had been missing for centuries. But progress came with new challenges. Strange alien wildlife often wandered close to human settlements. Some creatures were beautiful, glowing softly like living lanterns. Others were dangerous, hunting in the night with glowing eyes. Hunters and guards were trained to protect the colonies, while scientists studied the animals to understand how they lived. Humanity realized they were not alone in this world, and respect for this planet was just as important as survival. As the years passed, leaders began planning cities. These cities were unlike those on old Earth. They were designed with advanced Technology from the ships and powered by renewable energy. Transparent domes protected homes from storms, and tall towers reached toward the sky, shimmering with light. Roads were built not for cars, but for advanced transport systems that glided silently across the land. Humanity was not just surviving, they were evolving. Art and culture returned to after centuries of living only for survival, people began painting, singing, and writing stories again. Music echoed through the settlements, children danced in open fields, and great festivals celebrated the rebirth of humanity. For the first time, people felt they were not just running from death, they were moving toward life. But still questions haunted them. Could they avoid repeating the mistakes of old Earth? Would greed, war, and division return to destroy this fragile new beginning? The leaders warned that if humanity failed to live in balance with this planet, history would repeat itself. Gravity had once betrayed them, but perhaps it was not gravity's fault. Perhaps it was humanity's own choices. And so a new dream was born, a dream not just of survival, but of unity. The new Earth would not only be a second chance, but also a place where humanity could prove they had learned their lesson. A place where peace, science, and respect for nature could guide the future. But deep inside the forests and oceans of this strange world, mysteries still waited. Creatures no one had seen, storms stronger than anything imagined, and secrets hidden. In the land itself, humanity had built a new civilization, but would it last? At first, life on New Earth seemed like a dream. People had food, shelter, and the joy of open skies again. But slowly, the dark side of this beautiful planet began to show. Strange events started to happen around the colonies, events no one could explain. Farmers noticed that some crops would suddenly wither overnight, as if something had drained the life out of the soil. Hunters disappeared in the forests, their weapons found abandoned but with no sign of their bodies. At night, colonists reported seeing glowing eyes, watching them from the shadows. Sometimes eerie sounds echoed across the valley's whispers that seemed almost human. Fear began to spread. Scientists worked day and night to understand this new world. They discovered that many plants and animals carried toxins unknown to human biology. Some creatures released spores into the air that caused hallucinations and sickness. Others had strange abilities, like glowing in the dark or blending perfectly into their surroundings. This was not just a planet full of life, it was a planet that defended itself. The forests held the greatest mystery. Deep inside, explorers found ancient massive trees that seemed older than Earth itself. Their roots glowed faintly in the dark, and strange symbols appeared on their bark. Some scientists believed the entire forest was connected, like a single living mind. If true, it meant the planet itself was aware of humanity's arrival. Then came the first great disaster. A huge storm struck the main colony, stronger than any storm from old Earth. Winds tore down buildings. Lightning set forests ablaze, and floods destroyed crops. Hundreds were injured, and the people realized this planet was far more dangerous than they had thought. It was not just a home, it was a challenge. Rumors spread quickly. Some believed the planet did not want humans living there. Others thought the disasters were just part of nature. But fear grew, and with fear came division. Should humanity push forward and tame the planet? Or should they leave before it was too late? The leaders urged unity. It reminded everyone that Earth was gone. There was no going back. If humanity failed here, there would be no third chance. But deep in everyone's heart, one terrifying question remained. Had they truly found a new home, or had they landed on a planet that would slowly destroy them? The disasters kept coming. Storms, floods, strange creatures, and poisoned land tested humanity's strength every single day. Life on New Earth was no longer about building cities. It was about survival. People worked day and night to protect their colonies from nature's fury. Engineers built massive shields to block storms and designed underground bunkers where families could hide during disasters. Farmers experimented with new crops that could resist toxins. Hunters learned to fight back against alien creatures using advanced weapons powered by energy cells from the old ships. Slowly, humanity began to adapt, but the cost was heavy. Many lives were lost, and fear grew stronger with each passing month. Despite the danger, humanity refused to give up. They remembered the horror of gravity's collapse and the endless journey through space. This was their only chance, and they would not waste it. Communities grew tougher, stronger, and more united. People who once fought over small things now stood side by side, protecting each other from the unknown. But survival came with a price. Some leaders began to argue that humanity should dominate the planet by force. They wanted to cut down the alien forests, kill dangerous wildlife, and reshape New Earth into a copy of old Earth. Others warned that this would lead to destruction again. They believed humanity should live in harmony with the planet, respecting its power and learning from it. This division created tension among the colonies. One side pushed for control, the other for balance. The struggle for survival was no longer just against nature, it was also within humanity itself. Would they repeat the mistakes of the past, or would they finally learn? The battle for survival had just begun, but the real question remained. Could humanity survive not only the planet's dangers, but also their own choices? At first, the colonies stood together, united against the dangers of New Earth. But as time passed, cracks began to show. Leaders of different colonies started to argue over how humanity should live on this new planet. Some believed the only way to survive was to conquer nature, bend it to human will, and rebuild a world like Earth. Others believed that trying to control New Earth would only lead to disaster. They argued for peace, balance, and respect for the alien environment. This disagreement grew stronger with every passing season. Colonies that supported domination began cutting down forests to build massive fortresses and clear land for farming. Their cities shined with glowing lights powered by advanced technology, but their actions angered the planet. Storms became worse around their areas. Strange creatures attacked more often, and even the ground itself seemed unstable. Meanwhile, the Harmony colonies lived differently. They built homes among the trees, used natural energy from rivers and wind, and studied the alien plants and animals to understand them. Slowly, they learned secrets about the planet, how certain plants could heal wounds, how glowing roots could provide safe light, and how the forest itself seemed to respond when treated with care. Their lives were harder, but they felt safer, as if the planet itself protected them. The two groups grew apart, and soon mistrust turned into hostility. The domination colonies called the Harmony people weak and foolish dreamers. The Harmony people accused the others of destroying the only home we have left. Skirmishes broke out over resources, water, food, and land. Humanity was no longer fighting just the planet. They were fighting each other. For many colonists, it was heartbreaking. They had lost Earth, survived the collapse of gravity, traveled across the stars, and yet here they were, repeating the same mistakes. Instead of uniting, humanity was dividing once again. And deep within the forests, the glowing trees seemed to pulse with light as if they were watching, waiting, and preparing for what was to come. It began with a single spark. A group from the domination colony tried to take control of a river that flowed through both lands. Water was precious on New Earth, and the domination leaders believed they had the right to claim it. But the Harmony colony refused. They argued that water was for everyone and should not be owned by one side. The argument turned into a fight. At first, it was only small battles, raids at night, stolen supplies, and destroyed farms. But soon, both sides armed themselves with weapons built from old starship technology. Energy rifles, shock shields, and drones filled the skies. Humanity, after escaping Earth and surviving the collapse of gravity, was now facing its first war. On New Earth, the domination colonies attacked with power. Their cities were strong and their weapons deadly. They burned alien forests to clear paths for their armies. The sky turned black with smoke, and the creatures of the planet fled deeper into the wild. The Harmony colonies fought differently. They used the land itself as their defense. They hid within glowing forests, built traps using alien plants, and learned how to control the strange energies of the planet. When the domination armies advanced, the very roots of the forest seemed to rise against them. The ground shifted, storms grew, and sometimes soldiers vanished in flashes of blue light. Swallowed by the mysterious wilderness, the war shocked everyone. Families that once lived side by side were now enemies. Children cried as homes burned. The planet itself seemed angry, shaking with storms and earthquakes as if it could feel humanity's violence. But within the chaos, whispers spread. Some believed the planet was alive, that it was watching the war and choosing sides. Strange symbols appeared on trees. Rivers glowed brighter during battles. And sometimes, soldiers from the Harmony colonies swore they heard voices guiding them through the dark. The first war on New Earth was not just about survival anymore. It was about power, control, and the very soul of humanity. Would they repeat the mistakes of Earth, or would they finally learn to change? As the war between humans spread across New Earth, something strange began to happen. The planet itself seemed to respond. At first, people thought it was just coincident storms rising exactly when battles began, rivers suddenly flooding enemy camps, or earthquakes shaking the ground beneath marching armies. But soon, it became too clear to ignore. The planet was awake. Trees that once stood still began to move in strange ways. Their glowing branches bent together as if they were whispering to each other. The skies lit up with strange lights that formed patterns no human could understand. At night, colonists heard deep rumbling sounds, like the heartbeat of the world itself. For the Harmony colonies, this was a sign of hope. They believed the planet was alive and trying to protect itself in them. They began to pray to the glowing forests, asking for guidance, treating the land with even more care. And in return, they felt safer. Strange creatures walked past their villages without attacking. Storms seemed to avoid their camps, and plants grew faster around them. But the domination colonies saw the awakening as a threat. To them, it was nothing more than a dangerous force of nature that had to be controlled. They built new machines, weapons designed to cut down the glowing trees and drain the rivers of their strange energy. Their leaders shouted, "We will not bow to a planet. We will conquer it." And so, the war changed. It was no longer just human versus human. It became human versus planet. Every battle was more violent than the last. Forests lit up with strange blue fire, mountains shook, and entire cities vanished into sinkholes as if swallowed by the ground. Whispers spread across both colonies. Was New Earth fighting back? If the planet was alive, did it see humanity as friend or enemy? And most important, the planet had truly awakened. What else could it do? The signs of the planet's awakening grew stronger every day. But then, something happened that no one expected. For the first time, the planet spoke. It began with whispers in the wind. Soldiers in the battlefield froze as they heard voices calling their names, though no one was near. Farmers in the Harmony colonies heard songs carried by rivers, soft melodies that filled their hearts with calm. Even children began to dream of glowing figures walking among the trees, speaking in a language they somehow understood. Soon the voice became clearer. The glowing forests pulsed with light as if beating like a heart. Then came words not through sound, but directly in the minds of people. "You are guests. You are children. Do not destroy what gives you life." The Harmony colonies listened with awe. They gathered under the glowing trees, believing the planet itself was their protector. They bowed their heads and promised to live with respect. To them, the voice was sacred, like a god who had finally answered. But the domination colonies reacted. With fear and anger, their leaders called the voice an illusion, a trick of the alien world meant to weaken humanity. "We will not kneel to a planet," they shouted. They increased their attacks, building massive machines to silence the voice. They drilled into the ground, trying to drain the strange energy that powered New Earth. The planet responded. Storms turned into hurricanes, mountains erupted, and rivers overflowed with glowing water that burned metal like fire. Domination armies were crushed under landslides and swallowed by earthquakes, but still, they refused to stop. Now, humanity was divided more than ever. One side listening to the voice of the world, the other side trying to kill it. But one thing was clear, the planet was alive, and it would no longer stay silent. Asterisk. After the voice of the planet spread across New Earth, something even stranger began to happen. Not everyone could hear the words clearly. While some only felt whispers, a few chosen people could understand every single message. These people came from both sides' harmony and domination. At first, they were confused. Children in villages suddenly spoke languages they had never learned. Soldiers on the battlefield fell to their knees, claiming they had heard the planet beg them to stop fighting. Farmers woke up glowing with strange marks on their skin, like patterns of the trees. They were called the children of the voice. The Harmony colonies believed these children were the planet's messengers. They treated them with respect, asking for guidance and wisdom. Whenever the children spoke, forests seemed to grow greener, rivers became calmer, and even wild creatures approached without fear. But in the domination colonies, the chosen ones were seen as dangerous. Leaders called them infected and traitors. Many were locked away, studied in secret labs, or even executed. But no matter how much they tried, more children kept appearing. It was as if the planet itself was planting seeds inside humanity. Soon, the children of the voice began to gather. Guided by dreams, they left their homes and traveled through dangerous lands to meet under the largest glowing forest. There, they formed a circle, holding hands as light surrounded them. The voice of the planet spoke louder than ever. You are my bridge. Through you, I will decide humanity's fate. This was no longer just a war between humans. It had become something greater. The planet had chosen its allies. And now, the children of the voice would rise to lead the next chapter of humanity. The children of the voice stood in the glowing forest, their bodies shining like living lanterns. Around them, the air vibrated with a strange energy, and the ground pulsed like a heartbeat. Humanity held its breath. Everyone waited to hear what the planet had to say through its chosen children. The children spoke in unison, their voices soft but powerful. A prophecy has been written into the roots of this world, they said. Humanity must choose harmony or destruction. If you live with balance, the planet will give you strength, health, and endless life. But if you fight and take without respect, this world will rise against you until no human remains. The words echoed across New Earth. Birds stopped flying, rivers turned silent, and even the glowing trees bent as if they were listening. The planet itself was holding its breath, waiting for the decision. In the Harmony colonies, people cried. With joy, they saw hope for a future where humanity and the planet lived as one. Leaders of Harmony villages declared that they would follow the prophecy no matter the cost. But in the domination colonies, rage spread like fire. Their leaders called the prophecy a trap designed to control humanity. We will not be slaves. To a planet, they shouted. Factories roared louder, armies grew larger, and machines of war were built faster than ever. They swore to silence the children and destroy the glowing forests. The prophecy divided humanity deeper than before. Families broke apart, friends became enemies, and battles grew even bloodier. Yet the children of the voice stood calmly, repeating, one final warning, the planet has patience, but patience has limits. The prophecy had been spoken. And now humanity split into two armies. On one side were the colonies of Harmony, carrying the power of the glowing forests. Guided by the children of the voice, on the other side stood the empire of domination, burning forests for fuel, building massive war machines, and using fire to crush everything in their path. The first great battle happened in the Valley of Rivers. The domination army came with fire-throwing machines, tanks of steel, and soldiers armored in black. Behind them, smoke rose into the sky, turning the horizon red. But when they marched into the valley, the ground itself awakened. Trees bent forward, roots broke through the soil, and glowing vines wrapped around the machines. The Harmony warriors stood calm, their weapons simple bows of light, staffs of crystal, and shields grown from living wood. As the children of the voice raised their hands, the forests lit up like stars, and the river glowed with golden fire. The war of fire and light had begun. Flames clashed with glowing shields. Machines roared against the whispers of the planet, and human screams filled the valley. For every tree the domination army burned, 10 more seemed to rise. For every soldier who fell, another stood with the courage of the planet's energy flowing through them. But domination was ruthless. Their leaders ordered firestorms to consume entire forests. Villages of harmony were set ablaze, and glowing creatures of the wild were slaughtered. The sky turned black with smoke. The prophecy had warned them, but still, humanity chose war. In the middle of the chaos, the children of the voice stood together. Their eyes shone brighter than ever as they whispered a single promise: this is only the beginning. The war of fire and light spread across New Earth. Forests burned, rivers boiled, and the glowing mountains shook with rage. The Empire of Domination was losing soldiers on the ground, but they had a terrible secret weapon: the Sky Cities were gigantic floating fortresses built high above the clouds, powered by stolen energy from the planet's core. From above, they looked like black fortresses with wings of steel glowing with red lights. Cannons pointed downward, ready to rain fire on anyone below. When the Sky Cities entered the war, the balance shifted. From the skies, fire rained down like meteors. Harmony villages were destroyed in seconds. Thousands of glowing creatures died in flames. The forests screamed in pain as entire valleys turned to ash. Humanity looked up in terror, realizing that the skies were no longer safe, but the planet would not remain silent. The children of the voice raised their hands toward the heavens. The forests answered. Gigantic glowing vines shot upward, reaching the floating cities. Mountains cracked open, releasing rivers of light that flowed into the sky. The very clouds turned golden, wrapping around the fortresses. One by one, the Sky Cities began to fall. First, their engines sputtered. Then, their wings tore apart. Finally, the colossal fortresses came crashing down, shaking the land with earthquakes. Fire and light exploded together, destroying everything around. The fall of the Sky Cities was both victory and tragedy. The Domination Army lost its strongest weapon, but the Harmony colonies lost thousands of lives in the crashing storms. The planet had warned them, yet the war only grew darker above the ruins. The children of the voice whispered, "The skies have fallen. Next will be the oceans." The skies had fallen, but the war was not over. The oceans, silent for centuries, began to stir. The Empire of Domination thought they were safe. After all, who could control the endless waters? But the planet had secrets hidden deep beneath. The waves from the black trenches of the ocean floor came a sound, low and endless, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Fishermen on the coasts heard it first. Their boats shook, the waves rose higher, and glowing blue cracks spread across the seabed. Then the abyss awakened. Out of the depths rose colossal creatures, older than humanity itself. Their bodies shimmered with glowing patterns, their eyes burned like suns, and their voices shook the air like thunder. Some looked like serpents of light, others like living storms made of water and fire. They had slept for millions of years, but now they had been called by the children of the voice. The Harmony colonies celebrated their arrival, believing the ocean guardians would protect them, and for a time, they did. The abyss creatures destroyed Domination fleets in seconds, smashing their warships like toys. Tsunamis rose higher than mountains, wiping out entire armies along the coasts. But the power of the abyss was not gentle. The same waves that crushed the Domination fleets also destroyed villages of harmony. The storms did not care who was friend or foe. The ocean was alive, and it was angry. The Empire of Domination, desperate and ruthless, tried to capture the abyss creatures with giant machines. They poured fire into the sea, poisoning the waters with black smoke. But the more they fought, the stronger the ocean grew. The war had now moved into the waters. Humanity realized something terrifying. The planet's fury was far greater than anything they could control. In the glowing eyes of the abyss, they saw only one truth if humans continued the war. The oceans would drown the entire world. The children of the voice stood at the shore whispering, "The sea has spoken. Next, the core will rise. The skies had burned. The oceans had roared. But now, the Earth's deepest secret was about to rise, the core, far beneath the surface. Where fire and stone had lived in silence for billions of years, the core began to tremble. The war between domination and harmony had torn the balance of the world apart. Every explosion, every scream, every drop of blood had reached the planet's heart. And now the heart was awake. The ground shook with earthquakes greater than anything before. Mountains split open. Rivers of molten light spilled across the land, and entire continents groaned like living beasts. The core pushed upward, sending pillars of fire and energy shooting into the sky. People looked up in terror as the horizon glowed red. The empire of domination tried to escape with their machines, but no technology could stand against the living planet. Harmony colonies fell silent, knowing the prophecy of the children of the voice had come true. Then it happened, the core itself emerged. It was not just fire. It was not just stone. It was a colossal being, made of molten energy and ancient wisdom. Taller than mountains, brighter than the sun. Its voice was the sound of creation itself. Shaking the skies and the seas, it spoke to humanity. You were given life on this world. You were given sky, sea, and land. Yet you chose war. Now you must decide peace or extinction. For the first time, both armies, the domination empire and the harmony colonies, stood still. Weapons dropped from trembling hands. Soldiers who had once been enemies now stared at one another, realizing they were all equally small before the living planet. The children of the voice stepped forward, their eyes glowing like stars. They begged humanity to listen, to unite, to end the endless cycle of greed and violence. And at last, silence spread across the battlefield. The planet waited. The core burned brighter. The future of all life stood on the edge of one choice. Would humanity learn? Or would the Earth reclaim everything? The answer was never revealed, because in that final moment, the story of mankind ended not with fire, but with a question only the next world could answer.